Hello, and welcome to Val Town. My name is Steve. I'm one of the founders of Val Town, and I want to make a 101 welcome video because it's been a long time since I've made content like this, and our platform has come a long way, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. So I wanted to turn on the camera, hit record, and make something. And I decided to do it as a live stream on the off chance that anyone wanted to join and give me feedback or ask questions as I do this live. But if you're watching this later, that's great too. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to sign up for Val Town like I'm a brand new user, and we're going to make something together. My idea of what we're going to make is a very simple web application that has a front end, a back end, and a database. So 3 parts. And we'll go over, what I want to go over is programming 101, vibe coding 101, client server database architecture 101. We're going to be using Val Town and JavaScript / TypeScript. So I'll talk, I guess maybe I should talk about what those are. But ironically, we're not going to be doing any client-side JavaScript. If that means anything to you, we're going to do all server-rendered HTML. Okay, and with that, let's get started. Great, I'll put myself in the corner there. All right, so let's sign up for Val Town. I'm going to use a new email address. I'll do Steve plus like demo 430 because today is April 30th, 2026. Okay, so I'm going to get a code to my email. One sec. Let me go get it and come back. All right, so now Steve1, that's a perfectly fine username. I'm going to use Val Town for personal projects. I don't want to subscribe to our newsletter again. Okay, so we have an AI agent that can build stuff for you, and it's quite good. Like a lot of other platforms have AI agents that are kind of an afterthought. We've spent a lot of time thinking about ours. We also have an MCP server, so you can use whatever AI you want and have it instantly deploy to our service. And when I say instantly deploy, I mean in 100 milliseconds, you give us code and it's live on the internet at a public URL, 100 milliseconds. So you could deploy 10 times in a second at live at a URL. So that's one of our better features. Okay, so here we are. We're in Val Town. This is a val that we made for you, an empty val. Here you have the AI on the side, which we will use at various points. But I want to get started without AI because I want to start really simple, get the basics working, and then we'll ladder up to AI later. This is in contrast with most vibe coding platforms where they're like, let's do AI, let's write hundreds of files for you, lots of boilerplate. And then you have an app that works and it looks very polished and you can share it with people, but you have no idea what any of those files do. And that's fine for the beginning, but then, you'll learn the hard way that simplicity and clarity and understanding all the pieces is there's something beautiful about that. So let's start there. It's 101, so you know what time it is. It's hello world time. So we do have AI in our text editor, as you just saw. Look, we got hello world logged. Pulled up the logs there. Here, let me zoom in a little bit so you could see a little bit better. So, classic programming 101 demo. Hopefully, I guess I'm boring some of you probably. So the log pops up and shows you itself, and you can click on it, or you could just click on logs. Logs could use a bit of a redesign, but hopefully they're fairly commonsensical and usable. So I hit run 2 times, so we see the 2 traces and raw logs. The difference between traces and raw logs is a little bit, every time I hit the run button, I get a new trace, and then traces can have many logs in them. So for example, I can do this, and now when I hit the run button, you will see 1 new trace come up. And that trace will have 3 things logged, and then raw logs will now have the 2 original, and then the 3 from the most recent trace. So raw logs don't have the trace groupings. All right, classic programming 101. I think it won't feel like programming unless I do a loop. I can never remember the syntax, so I'm glad that it finished it for me. So now I can hit Command Enter, and that will run the code. So, and in this case, it printed the numbers 1 through 10. I can go back to hello world, and then this would print hello world 10 times, or I could print hello world plus the number. It would be hello world 1, hello world 2, as you will see shortly. Command Enter, and it ran, and then there are all the logs. Basics of programming. You read from top to bottom. The syntax matters. That sort of thing. Okay, now let's jump to servers. Maybe this is a big jump. The amount of code, though, is not a very big jump. So I just clicked that one button, and it wrote me a server, saved it, and deployed it all in 100 milliseconds. Let's see. I kind of want... okay, I guess that's fine. I want you to be able to see all the code and this output thing over here. So first thing I want to make sure you guys see is that we have the same instant deploy situation. So I could say, return the JSON of hello world, Command Enter. It saved, deployed, and then reran the server. And there you see the output. Let me open this in a new tab so you can see that this is deployed at a URL. And I could refresh the page and I get the output. And every time I change the code, this is instantly deployed and live to the whole world. Pretty freaking exciting. And you get logs built in for free as well, which is also great. Okay, so that's the basics. If anyone's watching and has questions, please chime in. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep chugging along. The problem of the curse of knowledge is that I don't know what's confusing. I'm trying my best, but without questions, it's hard. So yeah, if you're watching this video in the future, YouTube comments would be great. So the next time I make the video, I would know what to clear up. Okay, so this is actually, in my opinion, gorgeous code. This is a comment of us trying to link you to our documentation so you can understand how to get started and what the basics of it are. But so I'll just remove that. And yeah, in code, I guess for anyone who's really basic beginner code, you can put anything in comments, but anything that's not in the comment, if I ran this, it would break everything because it's trying to run that, but it doesn't know how to run that. Okay, so if you're like my partner, my fiance, soon to be wife, we're getting married in just 2 weeks. She kind of wanted everything to be explained in detail. So for example, with console.log, she's like, what's a console? What's a log? Why am I logging to the console? And took us down this amazing rabbit hole of, consoles, like kind of cabinet, and log is because, in shipping days, they would throw a rope off of a ship and have knots in it. Or they throw a log with a rope attached off a ship and they have knots in it. They count how many knots to measure distances on ships. And you would log that, you'd log the log information into a logbook. And so a logbook in programming is, you're writing down everything that happened, kind of, or a notebook you can write stuff down, which is useful in the same way a logbook is useful. It's like go back and figure out what happened. So in that spirit, I'm just going to go over each one of these words because I think it's gorgeous. And if we don't, it might be scary. So I'm just going to go ahead about it. Export, this means that this value that we're, well, I guess export default go together, but I'll just start with export. Export means that this thing we're making is accessible from outside this file. So by default, if I define a variable, const is a constant variable, const a equals 1, only that's a is only known about within this file. Other files don't know about a. But export means that we want to export it out of this file. So other people can import it. In this case, we need it to be exported because Val Town needs to know how to run your server. We need to know what code you want to be your server. This is a server. That's it. This is the whole thing. This is a web server. Can you believe it? Just this 3 lines of code is a whole web server. You could send it HTML requests and it will respond with HTML responses. So we'll get to that in a bit. Export default. We don't technically need that. I think the way Val Town works is if there's any, oh, look at that, export async. Oh, I see. There's a syntactic error if I get rid of it. If I got rid of it here and I give it a name, like any name, like server, then I think it would work. Yeah, then it still works. So this is kind of, doesn't really matter, but we're saying we're exporting it as the default thing. So somewhere else can import it without importing it by its name. It's like the default thing that's being exported. Async means that there will be things in this function that take time. This is underlined because we aren't doing anything in this function that takes time. We're just immediately returning some JSON, hello world. So that's why it's saying you don't need this. So we can get rid of this and everything works just fine. Then this is complaining that this is not quite right. This is complaining that we're not even using the request, so I can get rid of this. Oh, here, I'll just put an underscore here. The underscore just tells the computer that we're like not really going to use this. Okay, so this is a little bit more correct, but it's a little bit more limiting. The way it is now, we can't do anything here that takes time. We have to immediately compute and then return, which I imagine is confusing. So don't worry about that too much. Here, we're creating a function, and this is a function that inputs a request and outputs, this means outputs a response. And then here, we're returning the response. This is like describing the function we're creating, and this is the actual code that runs when the function is called. This function is called whenever an HTTP request comes to this URL. All right. This is basically HTTP 101. So you're familiar with HTTP because if you're really not a programmer, from this HTTP : / or HTTPS : /. It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And the S stands for secure, which means that things are happening. Secure means that you have, there's a certificate and everything's encrypted. So nobody, if you can spy on your communications with an HTTPS website. So yeah, I guess Internet 101 is, there are a lot of different protocols. HTTPS is the protocol for transferring hypertext. Hypertext is HTML. HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Hypertext markup language, I think. So let's find out. Hypertext markup language, nice. Ironically, even though we're using the hypertext transfer protocol, we're not yet using any hypertext. We're using JSON. JSON is not hypertext. JSON is another data format. HTML is a data format. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And JSON is a way, a particularly JavaScript-friendly way to transfer data around. So this is a piece of data. This is what we call an object. An object you could think of as like a bunch of key value pairs. So there's a key called hello and the value is world. All right. I think that's the basics of what's going on here. I know this is a lot of information if you're new to programming, but hopefully you can let it wash over you. You could glean what you can glean and not be too caught up on things you don't understand. If you have questions though, please ask in the comments so I know what is confusing. All right, where do we want to go from here? Okay, so ultimately what I'd like to do is front-end, back-end database. So let's start with our front-end. New response, hello world. Okay, so now instead of returning JSON, I'm returning text. So this is a website, kind of, but text. There's no HTML yet. Now let's do some HTML. HTML. But that doesn't look like a website, right? That's not right. Okay, so ironically, even though we're using the hypertext transfer protocol, the default is not HTML. You have to go ahead and specify in the headers that the content type is HTML. So then when I save this, dun, 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 HTML. Let's see, what else can I do in HTML that will convince you it's HTML? Here, let me add an input field. That's clearly HTML, right? You guys believe me? This is HTML. All right, we got a front end. So one thing that I think is super important, and there's nothing embarrassing on my TL draw. Okay, great, there isn't. So this is the most important thing for anyone who wants to go from being like computer front end, back end literate, like being computer literate and dangerous with computers, someone who could use spreadsheets and Zapier and someone who's good with computers, to someone who like can really code. Even if you're just going to want to vibe code, like this stuff is really, really useful for you. So when you make a full stack CRUD application, CRUD stands for create, read, delete, update. When you make an application that has a website that you can reach via URL, and then like a backend API, and then also can store data long-term, this is the architecture of every one of those apps, basically. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but for practical purposes, every one of those apps looks like this. It's called client-server database architecture, and the way you should think about it is that there are 3 computers spread out in space. There's more than 3. There's only 3 categories of computers. For example, this represents all user computers. So you can just think about one user, but there could be a million of these. This represents your server, and just think about it as one computer in the cloud. And when I say the cloud, I want you to think of a data center in Ohio, which is basically just like a big factory-looking space in Ohio, and they have just shelves of computers, and one of those computers has your code on it, just on one computer, not on multiple. That's what I want you to think about. In practice, this could scale out horizontal. This could scale out. We call it horizontally. In this diagram, it looks vertical, but I guess you can imagine going this way. It could scale out, and so you can have lots and lots of servers. And so if you have too many users that for one computer to handle, you could have a router in the middle here. They call it like a proxy server or a load balancer, and it will find you a free server, find one of your users a free server to talk to. But logically, this is one computer, this is one computer, and then your database is one computer. And again, databases can kind of scale a little bit horizontally, but logically think about it as one computer in one place. So, and then I guess an important thing to note here is that the client computer cannot talk directly to the database. It needs to go through a server. And the main reason for that is authentication and authorization. Not everybody is allowed to directly write any SQL query they want to the backend. To the database. It's the backend's job to figure out who you are and what you're able to see and what you're able to write and do to the database. And I guess when I describe it like that, it does beg the question of why aren't these 2 things kind of the same thing? And you could do it like that, but in practice, it's really nice to have everything broken up into these 3 different parts. And when we go back to Val Town, you will see that it's confusing because in Val Town, we're going to write a bunch of code, and all the code is going to kind of live potentially even in the same file, and yet the code will be running in different physical computers and different physical spaces. That's kind of crazy. So, for example, this represents the code of the server right here in the middle. But then this is an HTML page. This is the HTML. It's described on the server, but then my browser, so the way this works, my browser makes a request to this URL. Let me inspect the page and go to the network tab to show you what that looks like. My browser is making a request. This is the request my browser just made. Let's make this bigger if I can. Whoa, get out of here. I hate this thing. I don't know how to get rid of it. Okay, can I make this taller? No, I can't. I don't know why. I guess I can make this whole thing bigger. Not really. Okay, I'm stuck with the sizes I have. We'll go with it. So my browser made to this URL. It made a GET request. It got back from the server status code 200. Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. And then the response it got is this. Oh, and then another thing it got back is content type text HTML. Text HTML, because that's what we put here. If we change things here, if I did like status 404, do you guys know what status 404 means? Why did that not work? Status. Is that not where our status goes? Huh. Okay, sure. 404. Cool, save. I guess that was just a random blip. All right, so everything looks the same, but let me refresh the page. Now it's an error. The status code is error 404, not found. So even though everything kind of is on the page is the same, the browser is like, wait a second, like that means something's not good. Status code 500 means there's an error on the server. Status code 200 means everything's A-okay. And you can leave this off. That's the default. All right. So you go to a URL. Your browser makes an HTTP GET request for the page, and then the server returns the HTML. So this is what the view page source. Hello world. Okay, that was cached. Okay, great. So this is what the browser gets back. And then it's the browser's job, the people who made the Chrome browser, it's their job to make that HTML this beautiful web page that you see before you. So the HTML is running on my physical computer. So the HTML is running here. The code for the HTML is written here and then sent to here, where I can then use it. All right, so we've got front end and back end. I think one thing we should do before we move on to database is we should do a little bit of routing. So yeah, I think that would help people. Yeah. So no, I'm gonna skip that for now. I think we'll get to it when it's like more obvious. All right. So let's say now we want to use a database. So we're going to do the simplest possible thing. I'm going to type in here. I'm going to click enter, and then that is going to get saved to a database, and then I will list everything in the database here also on this website. All right. Sounds pretty fun, right? What should we do? There are a number of ways to do this. I'm just going to go with one of the more idiomatic and simple ways. So what I just did is I kind of did a no-op, like something that doesn't have any effect. These quotes mean strings. Strings you could think of as text. When I say string, you could hear text. So this is a block of text in the quotes. If I change it to these backticks, that's still a block of text. Nothing's changed. The main thing that's changed is that I can now spread it out on new lines, and it will still be text across new lines. If I try to put a new line here, it would break everything. That's just how the parser works in JavaScript. Okay, so I'll save the page and prove to you that nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is that the source code maybe looks different. Yes, the source code now looks different, but as far as HTML is concerned, it renders the same way. Okay, so now we want to be able to like submit this to the backend, and there are a bunch of ways to do it. The most idiomatic way is to use an HTML form. And when you create an HTML form, you get like a number of things for free. So for example, when I type in blah, 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 and I hit enter, the form got submitted. That's why the text went away. This is kind of just basic HTML stuff, but that I'm talking about, but we're about to handle the form submission on the back end. So Can we tell what is a form submission and what is not right now? Let's see. So if I do this and hit enter, we got a new request, and this was, I think, the form submission, but we can't like see any of the data. It's like it's not helping us. I think one reason is that this input doesn't have a name. So I'm going to give it a name like, let's see, item. This is a string, could be whatever you want. So now I hit enter. And okay, look at that. So this is something the browser did for me automatically. I'll show it here. Maybe you'll see it better. So I typed in something random, I hit enter, and then it put the name equals the value into the URL bar, and now sent my browser at this URL. So when you're on an HTML form and you type something in and you hit enter, your browser goes to, it's basically like, it's almost like a link to this page. But my server, I don't care what the request is. Like this thing right here is in the request, which we are ignoring. Like you don't see me using the request anywhere here. Let me use the request. Okay. So in this case, where the data is in the URL. Hey, Danush. Nice. I got someone joining. Thanks for joining. Okay, cool. So I'm going to get this piece of data out of the request. So first, I have to get the URL of the request. Let me get rid of this underscore. All right, so now I have the URL of the request. Basically, this is just a piece of text. But if I give it to this like helper function thing, it turns it into this proper JavaScript object, which helps me use it more. So well, actually, you know what? Let me comment this line out. I did that with command / and let me just put the whole URL on the screen. This is string interpolation. So this just puts it on the screen. So you can see here, this is the URL, and I type something new in here, enter, and I get the whole thing, which is cool. You know, like you can see how data from the URL goes to the server and then comes back. You know, data from here goes to here and then comes back to here. So there's something happening across space in two different computers. This computer that I'm talking to you from is in Brooklyn, New York, and then there's a computer in Ohio where Val Town keeps its servers, and that computer is doing this thing. So communication from Brooklyn to Ohio and then back to Brooklyn. Okay, but like I just want to put this on the screen. I just want to put this in the database. So let's do that. I have this URL object. Now I can, URL dot search params dot get item. Save that, and now go here, and look at that. Whatever I type here, so I'm getting out, this is called search params. I'm getting out the value of item. That's what I just did. So instead of getting the whole URL, I just get the value. Cool. There are other ways to do it with post requests, form data. There are other ways to do what I just showed you, but I don't see any reason to do that. If anyone watching this wants to know about those things in present or future, let me know and I'll change it. But if you're happy with this, I'm happy with this. This is basic front-end, back-end database. So we don't need to go on too many detours. Here, if there's nothing in the URL, in the search params, you get null here, which isn't so pretty. So I can just say, if this is empty, then just return nothing here. So it's either this or just not, this is the empty string, basically. Cool. So that gets rid of the null. So now if I refresh the page, it's gone. All right. Now we have a front end. We have a back end. Let's make a database and let's shove some stuff into it. Okay, so normally I would use AI to make me a database, but let's freaking press some buttons. Why not? It's fun. Okay, items. All right, and then I'll add a column. I'll call it item. And this is the world's simplest database table. Let me add a row to it. This is a SQLite database. Boom, made for you in the cloud, free. Let's see. Testing number 1, exclamation point, add row, boom. Data in the database table. Isn't that pretty freaking sick? It's like a spreadsheet, but more structured and more powerful, more queryable. All right, so we could go 2 different ways. We could add data from here to the database, or we could get data from the database and put it on the screen. Both are fun, interesting projects. I think getting data from the database and putting it on the screen could be kind of fun, but I guess that's not really that. I guess they're both about equivalent. Let's get some data. I think it's a little bit easier to think about. It's about the same. All right, so back to SQLite, connecting. All right, so let's copy this. All right, so this is importing the SQLite function from the Val Town standard library, and this is running some. This would run some SQL. This will run a query on our database. So I could say select star from items, and this will return the items. So, so like if I'm just trying to mess around, I can keep this code here. I could do const data equals this. I would like log it to the console, and then I'd see, like let's see what kind of data I'm getting. Ooh, I get this like result set thing, and it comes with rows. Oh, like this is the data right here. So, I already kind of knew that, but if you didn't, that's how you could figure it out. So, and let me move it into here. So things that happen up here happen like once when your code gets run for the first time in a while, kind of. Like it's not super obvious when things up here get run. They're like, we can get back to that. Things inside here get run whenever a new HTTP request comes in. So this is a server. Inputs a request, outputs a response. Every single request to your server runs this whole function. All right, so we're getting out some data. This is not going to work. So this breaks your whole freaking server. So let me undo that and save. Okay, cool. Now it's working again. It's fine. This line of code can work here. It can't work inside here. And let's say we're like kind of pissed about how I just broke the whole server. What I could do is create a new branch and call this like database branch. Now on this branch, I have a copy of the code. I have a copy of the website. And here I'm going to drag this in. I'm clicking option down to move this line of code in. Hit save. Here, the code is broken. On this branch, the code is broken. If I go to the main branch, the code still works. So this is how you can keep your production working and then work in like a little sandbox where you don't bother your users or embarrass yourself. Okay, so how do we fix this? Basically, I guess it's telling you right here that await expressions are only available in asynchronous functions. So we just need to make this an asynchronous function instead of a regular function. And then it should all just work. There are a couple more issues, but this is the solution to the problem. If you remember earlier in the video, this was there before, but it seemed like the code wanted me to remove it. It was underlined in that way because there was no awaits in the code. Now there is an await in the code, so I need this. So you need this if and only if you plan on using any awaits in the code. Okay, so now let's talk about that. The code here, everything is happening very much immediately. This line of code happens. This line of code, well, I guess ignore this line of code. This line of code happens. Everything happens boom, 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 right after another. This is different. Talking to the database does not happen immediately. And this is a good point in the video to stop and pause and think about this. Why does the code talking to the database not happen immediately, but these other things do happen immediately? The answer is here. anything that happens on on one particular computer, for the most part, well, not everything, but a lot of things, typically on one computer, they can happen pretty immediately. That's not true when you think about like the file system and other input-output kind of things. But I guess really what I'm talking about, things happening immediately, that's if you're in the CPU, you're in RAM. If you want to talk to the hard drive, that doesn't happen immediately either. And if you want to make a request to a different computer, that also doesn't happen immediately. Actually, if you think about it, a hard drive is kind of like a different computer on your computer. So that's even a special case for. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you're on one computer, things happen immediately. When you want to talk to another computer, even from your CPU and memory to your hard drive, that takes time, and that has to be awaited. The reason it has to be awaited is because in some programming languages, await happens by default. Like you could just do this, and by default, everything in your code would just, like the whole world would pause. Everything would wait until this is done, and then this would happen. JavaScript isn't like that. JavaScript defaults to, oh, okay, I'm going to fire this off, continue on with this before the data even comes back, which sounds crazy, but there are times when you'd want that to happen. So, but anyways, don't think about it too much. Sometimes you just need to put the await keyword in. It's not a big deal. You just have to put async here. All right, so now we have the data from the database. Let's put all the data from the database on the page. I'm going to call this like my list of items. And then I will list out the items. Cool. AI did the work for me. For this saying, for each row, put the item on the screen. Look at that. Testing 1 is on the screen. And if I went to SQLite and I added another thing here, which I'll do right now, testing 2. Then we go back to here on the database branch, and it works. You see testing 2 is on the screen. Isn't that freaking cool? So we've already accomplished what we wanted to. We have a front end, we have a back end, we have a database. All these pieces are existing. We're coordinating 3 different computers in space and time, and we're done. I guess there are a couple of issues. One, I forgot to add this. When the types are wrong, it doesn't prevent the code from running, but it will like make your code kind of have a red squiggle underneath it, tell you that something's wrong, something's inaccurate. Whenever you have an asynchronous function, it returns a promise, which I don't want to get into, but the basic idea is that anything that takes time doesn't give you a result immediately. It gives you the promise of a result. And then if you await the promise, you get back the result. But then everything kind of pauses here until you get the result back. Okay, so we're done in that we have a front end, back end, and a database. It totally works. But what we really want, and where we're getting close to, is when I type something in here and click enter, it should go into the database. It looks like it did because I'm showing it here on the screen, but it's not actually here. Yeah, these things are in the database. This is just on the screen. So that's why I refreshed the page and it went away. What we need to do is insert this into the database. So that needs to happen up here before we do the response. And to be honest, we should do it before we even get the data out of the database, because we want to do it so that we get the data. Look at that. AI figured out exactly the code I want to write. So let's put that there. Let's get rid of it here. And guys, I think it could be basically done. Let me just do that. Now I'm just trying to make the code take up the smallest space it can to be a little more idiomatic. All right, let's test it out. Testing 3 from HTML. Dun, 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 dun. Enter. Guys, we did it. We did it. Refresh the page. That data is there. Go to my SQLite database, and the data is there. All right, let's go to the database branch and merge it into main. So that's going to say all these changes are going to overwrite what's there, and it's done. You could see in history, that's when we merged it in. Here's all my edits over time, and there we go. Testing 4. the database doesn't get branched. That's like one limitation of our platform. Guys, isn't this crazy? Front end, back end, database. So if you're a stickler for nuance and you're like, wait a second, Val Town has SQLite. Shouldn't SQLite be on the same computer as the server? We don't do it that way at Val Town. We use Terso, which is cloud-based databases. It's very fast and cheap, and I don't think you'll really mind that it's not an embedded database like a lot of people use SQLite. If you wanted to see how fast is Terso, let's find out. Const now equals date.performance, or like JS performance time, performance on now. Is that it? What? Performance on now. Weird. With a lowercase p. Okay, so that's like right now. So this is how many milliseconds the insert will take, and then this is going to be how many milliseconds this is how writes and reads. So testing perf, enter. All right, so now let's go to my logs. No, don't be slow. Okay, cool. So it took us 24 milliseconds to insert an item to the SQLite database and 9 milliseconds to get out all the items. So overall, this increased things by 40 milliseconds. So, if you look at this, test, enter, it's like that took an extra 40 milliseconds, but it was pretty freaking instant, guys. So in practice, I think it's not a big deal. We have tentative plans to embed SQLite on the same computer, but I think even then you still have to await stuff, and it'll go to 1 millisecond. Great. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let me remove these timings. I'm going on all sorts of tangents. Hopefully it's interesting for folks. So I think it's useful to pause here for a second and be like, wow, in 23 lines of code, we've written a distributed system. We've written a client-server database, and this is the client, directionally. This is the server, and then this is the database, like importing the database. This is talking to the database, and then over here is kind of where we like created the database, and mentally we can think about where it lives in this tab, I guess. Pretty awesome if you ask me. We could stop here. How long have I been doing this? 45 minutes. I might as well just go for the hour and refactor things a bit and just keep yapping because I'm having fun. There are a couple things here that you might, if you're like me, think have a smell, a code smell. Maybe you don't have a refined nose for code smells yet, but maybe I'll teach you. Let's do it in a new branch so you could see here what the difference is. I'm going to delete the database branch. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to create a new branch. I'm going to call this branch. I'm going to call the new branch Hono because we're going to refactor this using Hono. So I could either do this by hand or I could ask AI to do it. I'm tempted to see what AI would do right off the bat, and then we'll go from there. Refactor this to use Hono instead. My instinct would have been to say use Hono JSX, but I'm curious if it's going to infer that. Oh, and did it also know to do it in the branch that I'm in? Let's see. Yeah, so I think it made a change in the branch, which is cool. All right, nice. It is using Hono. This is here. I can show you the diff. It imported Hono. It's from npm. npm is node package registry. This is where people like share JavaScript code. Imported Hono, created a new Hono server. This line is not, I don't want you to think about it too much. It helps Val Town users see Hono errors. I could show you what things would look like without this, actually. Yeah, to be honest, I feel like AI made things confusing, and I kind of want to just go back. So I'm going to go to history and revert back to before AI made the change for this branch. Okay, great. So now I'm back to where things are. Let's do it one step at a time, guys. Typically, I don't write this code by hand, but why not? Sure. Is Hono 4 a thing? Well, I'll hit save. Let's find out. Okay, Hono 4 seems to be a thing. Sometimes we have competing completions. For example, like here, if I go Hono dot, like I don't want the AI right now. I want the language server. This is our language server to like tell me what are the types off of here. But sometimes I can't trigger it. Here, let me see. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. Let's see if that fixed it. No. Okay. Sometimes our language server doesn't work. Oh, there it is. There's our language server. So now I can do Hono dot, and then no. Okay. Const app equals new Hono. That's typical. At 4. There we go. That's the language server I was looking for. Cool. At 4.12 is fine. It'll just do whatever's latest. App. Okay, so I have a blank Hono app. I could do app dot. There we go. That's my language server. Language servers are, oh my God, they're a complicated thing. Basically, this code is JavaScript code. And what is possible at various places in the code is computable. And so we have some code running, reading this code. We have a language server, which reads this code. And based on where my cursor is, it will give me information about what I'm hovering over. When I type something, it'll give me information about what I could type here that would make sense. It's very hard technology to use and maintain. We wrote a couple blog posts about it if you want. All right, so now instead of writing this normal JavaScript function, we're going to use Hono. Whoa, what just happened? Oh my God, wow, that was a crazy bug. Yeah, I'm going to keep the save version. I think AI got in the way, and wow, that was a crazy bug. Ignore that. All right, so we are going to use Hono. Hono is a simple web application framework. Let me compare it to things you may have heard of. It is probably most similar to Express.js, which is if you look at this and look at this, pretty freaking similar, right, guys? Yeah. Hono is like the new Express.js, but it's meant to run everywhere, and Express only runs in Node.js. Basically, there are a couple different ways and places you can run JavaScript. You can run JavaScript in a web browser. That's on this computer. If you're going to run JavaScript on a server, you need to use Node.js or Dino, which is what Val Town uses, or Bun, which is a new common popular one. Okay, so Hono is like Express.js. If you come from the Python world, you may have heard of Sinatra. What? Do I know how to spell Sinatra? Oh no, Ruby. If you come from the Ruby world, then Sinatra is the minimalist web framework to make web servers. If you come from the Python world, it's Flask. Is the kind of the minimalist one. If you haven't heard of any of these, maybe you've heard of Ruby on Rails or the Django framework or Next.js. Those are much bigger, batteries included web server frameworks. the three I mentioned, Hono, Express, Flask, Sinatra, those are the four I mentioned. These are lightweight little servers. And so we're going to make a Hono server. This is a server with no framework. This is just raw JavaScript. We're going to replace this with Hono. And you'll see by the end of this why we want this. It's a little nicer. It's a little easier to read. App.get. So this is saying for GET requests to the slash route, slash is implied. So whenever you see a URL with nothing after it, there's an implied slash there that your browser adds behind the scenes. So that's what we're saying here. For the empty route, for the slash route, do all this stuff. I think I just have to do c.rect.raw. Okay, so oh yeah. Okay, I think now everything will work just the same. Oh, nope, hold on. I have to do one last thing. Export app.fetch. Okay. Now, that's what I call a no-op. We have the server running in the Hono branch, doing the same thing it did before. Like everything works the same, but it's happening in Hono. What do we get for this? So far, basically nothing. I guess one thing we got from this is that if I go to like slash whatever, some other page, we get 404 not found because we've only defined the slash route. We haven't defined the just so whatever this thing is here. If we wanted to match on that and everything, we could do. I think we could do star here, and then it'll match on everything. So now if I refresh the page, it'll work. So if I truly want it to be a no-op, I'd have to do star, which means match on everything. But I'm just going to do slash. Okay, cool. So everything's basically the same as it was, but we're using Hono. But now let's use some of the features of Hono to actually refactor this and make it better. I think one way that we could do that is I think this C thing, which is kind of like a request, it has the request. This is how you get back the raw request object we were using before. This C thing has more stuff in it, which I think mean that you don't have to do this, but I don't know how to do it yet. So let's Hono get search params. Okay, cool. So that's how you get the value of params in the URL. But this is how you get query string params. Cool. So I get rid of this URL thing, and then instead do c.search. Was that right? c.rect.query. Okay, c.rect.query. If you're wondering how I got my cursor in multiple places at once, I select some text and then do Command D to select the next occurrence of that text. Save, and we've got another no-op. So I just deleted one line of code and simplified a couple other lines of code. Is it worth it? Not really. But I'm going to do that again. So instead of this, let's use the Hono helper. So I'll do c.html. And then again, I can get rid of these content headers because HTML sets the content type to HTML. So save. So I just deleted another 4 lines of code. So even though we had to import Hono and export it and all that, well, actually, let's see. Is this less or more lines of code than we had before? This is one fewer line of code, although I guess we could get rid of some new lines, and then it would be maybe closer. Let's get rid of all the new lines. Let's keep this one new line because we have it in the main branch, so it's apples to apples. Okay, so now we've gone from 23 to 20 lines of code, which on a percentage basis isn't terrible. Where else do I want to refactor things? All right, so there are a couple places I might want to refactor things. Refactoring this out could be good, and then refactoring this could be good. Those are the last two things, and then I'll be done with this video. Just final 2 refactors. So I kind of alluded to earlier that the way I'm doing this with the query string is a little weird. Like when I type in here and enter, and it goes to this URL, that's a little weird. The more typical way to do it is to not do it with a GET request with the value in the query string, like the search params, but instead to do a POST request with the data in this like invisible body that your server sends to, your browser sends to the server. So let's do that. Another reason to do that is instead of using this if statement, I will match on it in my Hono router. A router is something like that helps you with URLs, matching on URLs. That's like one of the benefits of it. Like I tend to avoid if statements if you can. Like for some reason, if statements can be a smell. Okay, not always, but anyways, this is a little bit more idiomatic. So all you have to do is say method post, and then save it, and then this will effectively break kind of how the app was working. If I type something here and hit enter, it says 404 not found because we are only doing GET requests. Now let's do a POST request. App dot post. So when you do a POST request instead of a GET request, this is what we want to do. Basically, yeah, we want to insert the item, but it won't be in the query param. It will be, I don't think anymore. I think when you do a POST request, it immediately goes to, I think so. Yeah, when you do a POST request, it goes to the body. And here we could see that. Refresh the page. Internal server error. Okay. What was the payload? Yes, form data. We sent a form data payload of item ASDF. Great. Then we got internal server error. That is what I was talking about earlier. So in order to get a better error message, you do app.onError, error promise.reject error. So here it's like trying to hide the error on purpose. And what I just wrote says, no, show me the error. Unsupported type of value. Okay, cool. So basically what that's saying is here, I'm like trying to add null or something to the SQL database. So that's why that's going wrong. Let's forget about this. Let's return c.html hi. And now I refresh the page and we see hi, great. Now let's get out the form data and add it to the database. Const form equals c.request.form data, cool. And then here we want to do form.get item. Okay, that should work. Save. All right, so now I'll refresh the page. I have a, testing new form, testing post form, enter. Cool, hi. And now let me hit enter here and then testing post form, nice. Enter, refresh the page. I think I think that's adding a bunch of, oh, interesting. Yeah, I think it just keeps adding those things to the database. It's weird that it's not warning me about that, like, foo, refresh. There we go, cool. Have you ever wondered, oh, you guys can't see this, it's so sad. Here, let me take a screenshot of it and then put it in my browser. Yeah, here, I'll show you what I'm seeing, 1 second. Actually, this is kind of a clever idea, if I do say so myself. Okay, so this is a screenshot of what I was just looking at. So when I refresh the page, after submitting a form without the DevTools console open, because I think that was blocking the thing, I get this confirm form submission. The page you're looking for, use information you entered. Returning to that page might cause any action you took to be repeated. Do you want to continue? Okay, so let's go over that again. So when I click here and hit enter, that's a GET request to this URL. Now I'm going to type like new entry and hit enter. That submitted it. Now if I hit refresh again, it's warning me in the way that, like, it's a browser. It doesn't know anything about anything. It just knows that it submitted a post request. And when I hit refresh, it's like, do you want me to submit a post request again? Post requests typically add data to databases. And so if I hit enter, now when if I did refresh again, it's still be like trying to repeat the post request. Now if I hit enter here, you see the entry twice because I did accept it. So yeah, it's just a convention. Browsers know that whenever they do post requests, if you hit refresh, they're like, are you sure? I'm going to send another post request. Are you sure you want me to do that? So that's another reason why it's good to split it out this way from a if statement in a get request, because we're adding something to the database. That's typically a post request. Cool. And then I don't need to get rows from here because I'm never using that. This is me just saying like, stop complaining. I promise you it's a string. Or, I did say that I don't like if statements, but I guess short if statements are kind of fine. If it doesn't have an item, return, or like if type of is not, if it's not a string, then say that it's missing. And then here, maybe now it's convinced. Cool. Nope, that's annoying. Wait, no. Const item equal. I'm trying to convince the type checker that I'm handling this correctly. So now if I do type, okay, I'm saying I'm getting out the item from the form. If it's not a string, return HTML that it's missing. Otherwise, add it to the database. So now the type checker's like, cool, this line of code should succeed because we've guarded against it failing up here. All right, so now I have more code than I had before, but I think it's a little bit easier to read. We don't want to return hi. We kind of want to redirect, actually. Although I'm not sure if this works in Val Town. We have a little bit of a bug, possibly. Oh, no, it works. Cool. So that's great. I'm glad that worked. We have too many items. Come on, guys, too many items. Let's, what should we do here? I could delete, no, I don't want to delete the whole database. Let's just delete a bunch of the data. Let's just delete all the data. Okay, it's all gone, and then add some enter. Cool. All right, we're back to where we started. Let's go back to my Hono branch. I think the code's a little bit easier to read. We separated out get requests from post requests. We have a router. So like here, let me show you. Let me like use the router a little bit more so you guys can see why routers are cool. Just copy this. All right, so here I'll just link to okay. All right. So now we have my list of items, and it shows the items. Then I can go to a new page /create, add an item. Oh, and then it doesn't return. Then it doesn't return anything. Oh no, here. Wait, why did that happen? Ah, yes. So this form is now posting to /create because it's on /create. It always posts to where it is, unless you give it an action. So I could, this would fix the bug. So, but I don't like this solution. I'll show you why. Like, enter, now it works. That's fine. What we really should do though is have it, have the post request be on /create. So this is the get and post request for /create, and then this is the get request for the homepage. So the homepage, I'll do it here so you can see the URL bar. The homepage has my items. I can go to the add item page. That's the create route. Add new item, enter, and it takes me back to the list of items with the new item on it. Pretty idiomatic. I think we're almost done. Home stretch, guys. An hour and 5 minutes. We're almost done. The last smell is that we're writing HTML in a text string, and that is ugly. And There's so many schools of thought about this. HTML templates, templating languages like Jinja, and there are other ones. Use React. There's so many different things you could do here. Strings, this isn't the worst thing in the world. It's simple. Like, this is a great place to get started if you're new to programming. But if you want to be idiomatic, then what we should do is use JSX. JSX is, in addition to JavaScript or HTML, that lets you put HTML or JavaScript into JavaScript, like kind of embed HTML into JavaScript. So first thing I have to do is change the file name from TS to TSX to signify that there's going to be some funky stuff going on. It's not just TypeScript anymore. It's TypeScript with HTML inside. Then I can get rid of these. I can get rid of this thing. And then let's see, will it help me? Okay. It's telling me the error, but it's not giving me a good, it's not helping me write it. I always hate writing this. Something like this, like JS, it kills me. Let's see, Val Town, Hono, JSX. Okay, cool. Okay, that didn't work. Rough. I'm struggling. All right, here I got it. Cool. All right. I'll say 12. So this is, all right, we're getting closer. Still not perfect. This is a magic comment. It's called a JSX import pragma, and it tells it tells the programming environment that it wants it to interpret this JSX as Hono JSX. Because there are different kinds. You can do React JSX, Vue JSX. There are different kinds of JSX. So this lets it be super configurable. That's the first issue. The second issue is that in JSX, you don't need the $sign anymore to do interpolation. You just do it like that. And then we also don't need this here anymore. You don't need that $sign. Oh, and then you need, HTML needs like an enclosing tag. So let's just use a div. All right, looks good to me, but clearly there's an issue with it. This is highlighted in red and expected a comma. Oh, yep, I just didn't get. Okay, cool. Huh. Yep. All right, cool. All right, back to no-op land. So this is what it said before as a string, but now we're using JSX. And just compare for me with your eyes. Isn't this so much prettier? It's syntax highlighted properly than this. And all right, this is complaining that when you're doing, this is really not necessary, but I'll do it anyways to make the Dino language server not complain. In JSX, when you have a list of items, you need to like give them this key thing. That's kind of a holdover from React. It's not really necessary for server rendered HTML, which is what we're doing here. All server rendered HTML. We're using JavaScript to construct HTML on a computer in Ohio, and then that Ohio computer is sending the text of the HTML to my computer here in Brooklyn, which is rendering it on the screen right here. Okay, I guess let's collapse all these lines down. Let's convert this to JSX. Let's try AI this time. Convert to JSX. That didn't do it. That was terrible. AI. Why even bother? Div. Get rid of these things. All right. That looks pretty good. Looks pretty good if you ask me. So that was another no-op. Let's check if it works. JSX, enter. JSX. Dun, 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 dun. All right, I think we're done. Let me do one quick read through over it. I guess one thing I'll teach you, here is that we have custom subdomains. So I can say this like Val Town 101 demo, and then now that's the URL, valtown101demo.val.run, which is a lot prettier than what we had before. But this one still works, by the way. This URL still works, but now we have Val Town 101 demo. Oh, I think we actually attached Val Town 101 demo to the Hono branch, actually, which is not quite what we want. We want to attach it to the main branch, but we'll get there in a sec. Yeah, it all works. It's simple. It's more lines of code now, but we have a little bit of error checking. We have proper get and post requests. We have a whole new page, which is cool. And I think it's like ultimately more readable, idiomatic JavaScript. This is like what Val Town code more or less should look like. If you want things to be prettier, then the idiomatic Val Town thing to do, in my opinion, is Twind. So let's let's give it AI a chance to show itself. Add a layout JSX Hono component. I'll use my voice. Component to this file. Add Twind to it. And good HTML titles. And use that HTML layout component for the 2 different pages we have. And style them minimalistically with Twind, but make them pretty. Yeah, so this is one way to do it. Another way is to use a classless JSS framework. Sorry, a classless CSS framework. Classless CSS. Classless CSS takes HTML, basic HTML, and makes it look good. So I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so it's working on the Hono branch. I'm going to go over to the main branch and add that. So here I'll leave it working on the branch. I'm on the main branch. Now watch what happens. I'm going to add this classless CSS thing, save, and then nothing. Come on. Did I do it wrong? Or yeah, maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I copied the wrong thing. Yeah, look at that. It made things like prettier without me adding like anything to the HTML. It takes bare bones HTML. So I made a classless CSS like where's my classless CSS? I made a classless CSS like demo at one point, which was fun. But anyways, yeah, there are a lot of different classless CSS frameworks, and it's like fun to see them all and like pick the one that you like. Here's another one. All right, and save, and it looks different, kind of fun. All right, so that's classless CSS, but let's go back to Hono and see if it did what I asked for. Okay, so whoa, so much more code, a lot of styling. Wow, but now it looks gorgeous. What do you think? Right? Freaking gorgeous. I think it looks pretty good. All right, so layout is this Hono layout component. Here it's including Twind, which is, it's like Tailwind, but it's meant to be a little bit, it like fits a little bit better into Val Town than Tailwind does because we don't have a build step. So this is a layout template from Hono, which I'm not going to get into because I am tired. And then it uses that layout, and then these class things are all the styles, like the colors and shapes and fonts and sizes and things. And so it adds a lot, as you can tell, it added a lot of code, but in an idiomatic way that like if you wanted to change something or make something bold, it's like easy to know where in the code to change that and how to do it. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you could see we give everyone $1 free Townie credit when you sign up. And after that, you have to upgrade to Pro to get more Townie. But you could use your own AI too if you wanted to avoid paying us, which you shouldn't, because we're nice people, and we made a cool tool. And if it makes your life better, we would love your money if we are giving giving you value. All right, so that is Val Town 101. Welcome to town. I sometimes call myself the mayor of Val Town because I am one of the founders. This is my mayor of Val Town. This is my personal profile. To give you a sense of what you can do in Val Town, this is my personal website on Val Town. It's pretty cool, pretty great. I made an alternative dating website in Val Town. Date Me Docs. It's featured. This was featured in the New York Times. Date Me Docs are pretty cool. I won't get into this. This was a cool website, end-to-end encrypted secret share. I make lots of crazy cool vals. Like this one I made, I recently made this within a vibe coding 101 session I did with some folks. This was one-shotted. One single prompt. AI worked for like 5 or 10 minutes, and it like built this beautiful website for Cooper Hewitt Museum on top of their API. No API key. Crazy. Yeah. Anyways, so there's a whole bunch of stuff you could do in Val Town. Here's some more templates to get started. You can make AI agents, make websites, front end, back end. Here's more of the community showcase. And then we also showcase a lot of cool stuff in our blog, which we put a lot of time and thought and energy into. Anyways, that is plenty of me yapping, don't you think? I think so. Let me close everything out. And thanks for anyone who joined while this was live, but I think mostly this will be an artifact for people in the future. But please, I do read all my YouTube comments. So and Twitter comments for that matter. So if you have questions or feedback, I'm all ears. Thanks for watching and welcome to Val Town. I hope you make something cool. And if you do, please let us know. Email me, I'm steve@val.town, or come into our Discord, and we have a showcase channel for you to post anything you made. Obviously, we appreciate it if you share about us on socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, Reddit, Hacker News. And yeah, my DMs are open on most platforms. I love hearing from people. Please email me. I can't believe I don't get, or like my capacity for receiving more and replying to thoughtful emails is higher than the amount that I get. So I would encourage it. Thanks for watching, and welcome again to the town.